It was at this moment that he knew.
He bucked up.
In 2008, I've been doing music independently for about 4 years, and
What was your name? What Legacy?
Legacy, yeah. I wasn't anything like important. I'd been in the studio like 2 or 3 years that I was doing it. I started like making beats on MTV Music Generator and then just using a karaoke machine to put my voice to it. And eventually someone said you should do something with that, so I started using the studio. And I recorded the song in 2008, actually called Respect the Ladies. And the place is called Karmaic Records. Like at the time, they were like a subdivision of like Columbia Records. Mm-hmm. And as any first artist will tell you, if you're under Columbia Records, you're gonna get fucked.
He's still recouping.
I mean, there's a reason why John Cena only had one album.
That's why you only have 2 shirts?
I got plenty of shirts. But yes. I wish that was the reason. But anyway, so the record deal. Respect the Ladies was actually gaining some traction at a time where that was crunk and, all that music. A song like that, even no matter whether people like it or not, is not expected to really draw at that point. Mm-hmm. But it was starting to draw, and it was recorded under their, umbrella, so they considered giving me a record deal. So I don't have a lawyer at the time, so I am reading.
I should have gotten you guys on a podcast sooner.
So I made the decision to read the entire contract. There is a contract. Read the entire contract myself. Now, I have a friend of mine. Her name is Amina Gunn. She used to work at Midway. She might still work at Midway, if Midway even still works. And she told me, she lived on Hewan Street in Dorchester. We grew up together. She said, on your first record deal, I guarantee you're going to get fucked. And it wasn't until I actually had a record deal in front of me and I read the contents of it that I realized she was right. Now, $2 million sounds like a lot of money until you consider what they were asking me to do in order to get that money, which I will get into. And aside from that, as a person who got that close to the industry and had to learn these things in order to figure out how to progress, the money you make after you have to delegate it out to all of your people that you need to sustain a music career, $2 million, you won't have more than half of that in 8 months.
You got Don King.
Well,
You ended up paying $8,000 for towel.
Well, thankfully, it didn't get that far because I read the contract. And they were saying, well, it's $2 million. What's wrong with you? I'm like, well, let me read the contract. So I read the deal, and including but not limited to things I would have to do or I would be in a breach of contract and not get a large amount of money were the following: get a piercing here, get a piercing there, get a tattoo right here that basically said "fuck women" or "women" with the the circle and the cross out thing with it. I have to wear a red bandana on this leg, a blue bandana on that leg. I would have had to have a ghostwriter, and I would have had to wear a wire for 15 out of 24 hours, and I would have to play this gangster gimmick character. And since I would be wiretapped and they would review it, if I didn't play the character for 15 out of 24 hours for the duration of my contract, I would forfeit the contract at any time and not get that $2 million. 2008 was the year when I had my first of 3 suicide attempts. So let's just say I wasn't in the best position to further sacrifice myself for an amount of money that probably would have been gone within a year and a half. And I will say this before you continue. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. There's probably somebody out there to fill that role. But where I was in my life and what they were asking me to do and the little bit of my own dignity that I had at that point, it wasn't for me.
And who you are.
Exactly.
His soul is worth $3 million at least.
No, so did they just, because you said your song was Respect the Ladies. Like you weren't.
That's the song that got their attention.
So did they want you to just.
Was
it kind of like overnight change who you were? Yes. Or were there kind of like, hey, you should go in there and start rapping about this stuff? Or, hey, get this piercing first. And then, hey, I'm going to get you just a tattoo of a woman. 3 months later, now you're going to get a red circle with a cross through it.
Well, dude, now is the time to remix that shit and re-release it on like SoundCloud or some bullshit as like the new like ally to the Me Too movement anthem.
That's true, but no, it's a good idea. If I wanted to get back into music, that would be a good strategy. But the thing I will give them credit for is that they pretty much laid it out all on day one. And like if they had led me into a false sense of security and say, okay, now you're gonna do that, like I probably would have gotten burned. But luckily it was all there, and when I pressed them on certain questions, they filled in all the details. And
see, even the positivity there, like he's like, at least they were straightforward about it. But see, the good thing
At
is
least
like
they use lube when they fuck me.
that's a great thing. Like here, for the first time ever, we could say, see, Lloyd has been fucked.